Hello there, this is Mr. Doty again, and well, actually, maybe not again, but it depends on if you've had other classes. So, I decided we needed to have some videos to go along with the Intro to AutoCAD class, and so I'm going to break this up into like some 20-minute videos or 15-minute videos. See what we can do to figure out to get you guys going and help make this class better. So here we go. Of course, first thing is if you can get AutoCAD 2020 downloaded or whatever AutoCAD you're working on. We just happen to be in 2020 right now. Honestly, they all look the same for the last 3 or 4 editions. When you start up AutoCAD, it basically looks the same. The icons up here in the ribbon are basically the same. Not much has changed. They just kind of give it a facelift and say, oh, hey, it's a new edition. So don't worry about what edition that I'm working on now. If you do this at a later date and we're on, 2020 whatever, or if you're using 2019 or 18 or even 17 for that matter. So, well, let's just talk a little bit about Autodesk. Actually, it's not just Autodesk. This is actually AutoCAD. Autodesk is the company, and people they always say they downloaded Autodesk, and I'm like, which one? So, sorry, not to be a smart aleck, but it's just the way it is. All right, so moving along, let's talk about what happens when you load AutoCAD. So, usually what happens is you get this right here. This is your start screen. And basically, it gives you options down here. It says you can learn, you can create. In the Learn tab, it has some getting started videos where you can tour the interface, create 2D objects, modify text and dimensions, and so on. So, honestly, I haven't looked at the videos to see how good they are, so it's worth a shot, right? So, there's just something that you can look at, see what might work. If we go back to the Create tab, which is where we're mostly going to be working from, it shows recent documents. Well, I haven't opened anything, so it just gives me some of the sample plans that are built into AutoCAD. So basically you've got options, right? You're going to either start a new drawing, right? Which just uses the base template file and pulls up, and the book has some files that you could download, and I just haven't messed with it because I want you guys to create your own stuff. So anyway, I don't know that I want to give you something and then confuse you by making you have to change something later. So when you see in the book and it says, open such and such file, whatever. Now, some of the files might be good, and I'll probably get them downloaded and see if, we can use some of them. But like the template, don't worry about that. Just start a new drawing. It'll be fine. So let's do that. Let's just start a new drawing. Before I do that real quick, though, is like you can open files or start a new drawing. Those are basically your options. So if we start a new drawing, we can kind of talk about the interface here, and that's basically what this first video is going to be about. Is just a little intro to AutoCAD, and hopefully I can show you how I set it up, and we can go from there. One of the first things I would recommend for you to do once you've got this up and everything, your license is good and you're ready to go, I would maximize the screen. For some reason, sometimes your ribbons don't always work right or look right, and depending on what you're viewing this on, sometimes the ribbon can get scrunched up a little bit, and which is fine. It might add some extra little pull down things here to help things to open up a little further. So you may, like if you're on a laptop with a smaller screen, you may not have this much space over here, or some of this stuff may be scrunched up a little differently, but it's all there. It's all the same, and it's fine. So like I said, this is the ribbon. You have a lot of different tabs up here in the ribbon, right, which you just click on. The home tab is where we do most of our work. It has our drawing commands here. It has our modifying commands here. And then we have annotation, layers, and well, blocks, some property manager stuff. And then you got your measure tool over here, which is kind of handy. Copy paste clipboard. Creates a base view from a model spec. Okay, well, we're not worried about that. So anyway, but we're going to be working with a lot of these other parts on here. And like I said, this is the ribbon. If you're working on anything that's basically, I'm going to say 2009 or 10 is where they introduced the ribbon. So almost basically for the last 10 years, or probably for the last 10 years, we've had a ribbon. At first, I wasn't used to it because we had these other things called toolbars, and the other thing that we have is up here in your quick access toolbar here, you got a little pull down menu, or well, pull down menu, yeah, a little arrow. I would recommend the first thing that you do here is go in there and click on show menu bar. You'll notice that you got some pull down menus. Well, this and toolbars is what I used to use before they came up with this ribbon. And then after they came up with this ribbon, some of the stuff that I was used to being able to find, I couldn't figure out where it was at in the ribbon. Well, they've gotten better at organizing this ribbon so that it's fairly intuitive and I can find what I'm looking for most of the time. But it's nice to be able to come up here and click on, let's say, format, and I can go, oh, hey, I want to go to text style, or I want to go to dimension style, or whatever style to adjust, or units, or limits. You know, if I want to go and actually pick on it, I can go find it. So that's our pull down menus. And again, what I did is I clicked up here. This is the quick access toolbar. I clicked on this little down arrow, and if you don't have it open, it says show menu bar. And obviously I have mine open because it says hide. So just make sure that you have that turned on. And you know, if you don't use it, that's fine. I'm just showing you some tools that you can use. Alright, so this is our drawing area, and obviously this is my cursor. Your left button picks, and if you're not in a command, it's going to create a window. Okay, and so when I pick with my left button, which just for reference, if I say pick, use your left button on your mouse. The scroll wheel button, I'll call it the scrolly button or something like that. You know, that's your middle mouse button, and it'll help you zoom in and out. But we'll get to that in a minute. And then you have your right click or your right button. So if I say right click on something, I'm say hit the right button on the right side. So the correct button on the right side. So what I was getting back to on Windows, if you go from left to right, you get this blue or solid bordered window, and we'll talk about how you pick things later on, but this is, you have to get all the way around it, and then if you go to the right, you get this green window, which is dashed. And if you're saying, hey, I can't see the blue or the green, and that's okay, don't worry about the colors. What matters is this guy has a dashed line, and you can just touch something and it'll pick it. And we'll talk more about that later. So I'm just going to, and here's the other thing, the escape key. Only use the escape key when you need to get out of something that you don't need to finish out the command, or you've picked something and you don't want to have it selected anymore. You can hit escape, or in this case I didn't want to have that window, so I hit escape. Now in general you want to hit enter or the space bar, which does enter. You got two enter keys on the keyboard, plus you got your space bar you can use as the enter key. and then you have your right button on your mouse. When you hit your right button on your mouse, a lot of times you will get a menu. And I can go in and at some point show you how I change my mouse the way I want it. But we're not going to worry about this. This is the first time I've run 2020, and so we'll just imagine this is, you're booting up your AutoCAD for the first time, and you're going to get in here and try to figure out how it works. And see, I picked this again. If I just pick again, it goes away. Now you'll notice that stuff was happening down here in this guy. This is called your command prompt or command line. I don't know why they decided that hey, let's just let it float. So this is like, it's like a tool palette or a toolbar. Well, this guy's important actually, and if you will pull it down here and dock it, and this is just me, but I always pull this up so I've got, the command prompt here showing a few different times. Now the neat thing about this is once you get, when you start typing in stuff, and I'm just using the scroll button on the mouse, I can just hover down here and I can actually scroll back and see what I've input or whatever the command is that's there, which is kind of cool. And this is one of the only programs that actually does this, where you can actually see what the heck's going on and what does the program want to do, and you don't have to sit there and guess. Alright, so this is your command line or command prompt. You do not, and it's just me, you don't have to click down here to type. Okay? Because you'll notice that once I move my cursor up here, it's not down there anymore. But if I were to type something like L for line, notice it shows up here on the screen, and it's showing at my cursor. Now there's a setting that I have that's defaulted to turn on that lets these things show up at your cursor instead of just down there in the command line. But once I hit enter, you'll notice that it shows up down here. So if you will pay attention to your cursor, but also pay attention to what this says down here, and it gives you hints on what it wants you to do next, or it gives you options most of the time. So sometimes in the book, the author doesn't necessarily tell you, like, might leave out a step, because I'm sure this person's been using the AutoCAD as long as I have, or longer maybe, and it's stuff that they're used to doing, and sometimes when you've been using something for a while, you don't always remember those little steps, but I'm doing my best. So hopefully I'll fill in some gaps that the book leaves out. Alright, so this is your command line. Like I said, you can see what you've done. Specify first point for the line. So like I said, you use your left button, and you can pick, 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 and you can pick. And then when you're done, you can right click. It gives you a menu, and you hit enter. Now you can also set up the mouse to where when you're in the middle of a command and you right click, it automatically enters, which is what I like to do. But we're not there yet, so we're just gonna show you what goes on. So and that's just the line command, and that's just me showing you how to input a command. You can type it in. I can go up here and click on line and do the same thing, and just click around, and you notice it gives me all these interesting things. It gives me the distance, it gives me an angle, and so on. And then when I'm done, I can right click and hit enter, or I could hit the space bar. So what I like to do when I'm drawing is I try to keep the keyboard close to where I can type in commands if I need to with my left hand, or if somebody had thought really hard about putting a number pad on the left side, I think it would have been great. But I don't know where they came up with that, because honestly I use my mouse. If I hold on to my mouse with my right hand, then my left hand's free to type stuff in. That's just how I do it. I'm just giving you ideas to let you know what's going on. Alright, one of the things in the book it tells you about first is your application button up here. And basically it's got about the same stuff on it as when you turn your menu on as this guy. Pretty much the same things. You know, you've got new, you've got open, close, save as, um, page setup manager, plot managers, plot styles, plot preview, and plot. Now plot and print are the same thing. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's okay. It's okay. Um, if you go to your application manager or application button up here, the big A, the big red A, it says print and then it says plot. So it's the same thing, okay? They used to use pens, and that's why they call them plotters, because it plotted it out kind of like you would plot out a course, you know, on a boat. And that's where it came from. All right, so you got the application button, you got your quick access toolbar up here, and you got your status bar down here, which let's talk about that next. Don't forget you got your command line. So one of the things that, you remember I said something about if I go into line and, you know, it pops up here at the screen, you know, I've got specify first point up there, and then I have specify first point down here. And I'm going to hit escape because I don't want to be in there. Well, there's a setting that we need to not turn on, but make visible. Okay, there's a difference. If you look down here, you've got all these different things, right? And you'll notice that some of them are, you know, highlighted, which means they're on, and the ones that are black aren't on right now, and that's okay. Like, let's just say for your grid, if you didn't want the grid on, that's fine. Honestly, I don't use the snapping grid really, and I don't know that the book really talks about it a whole lot. The only time you really that I've ever used the snap mode with the grid is whenever they didn't give me measurements in a book, and you know they were teaching you how to draw to start off, and honestly, let's just give me measurements and let's draw. I leave the grid on, or at least this version of the grid. This is the newer grid. The old school grid is just a bunch of white dots, and honestly they clutter up the screen. So I'd leave this on just for as a background basically, and I don't use this snap mode, which we can talk about later, but anyway. So in your status bar, like there's things you can that come on standard or are shown standard, and there are things that aren't. So right here in this little line thing here, which it pops up, if you click on it, you get all these options, right? Well, you'll notice that dynamic input is not visible because it's not checked here. So if I check it, you'll notice that this little icon down here that looks like a battery, I thought it looked like an Xbox to start with. I was trying to come up with something that would, you know, everybody would get. So last semester we came up with, it looked like a battery, so that's what I'm going with. So the little plus sign looks like a battery, kind of like a AA or AAA battery. We're going to go with that. So that is dynamic. Now what does dynamic do? Well, first of all, before we get to that, let's back up a second and let's see what other things we have on here that we might turn on. If we wanted to see exactly where a coordinate was, which that might happen in another video, we could turn on coordinates and see it shows up down here. I don't need this one. Definitely want these. For right now, don't really need this one or this one. Definitely don't need that one or this. So, you know, there's some of them that we don't really need. Don't necessarily need the workspace switching because we're only using 2D and that's it. But we can leave it on. Annotation monitor, you know, that's not. Units might be handy, so you can make units visible so you can see what units you're always in. That way, you know, you can check it, you know, you can look at it and go, hey, That's what the units are. I'm good. Then I can go set my limits and then zoom all. I'm going to beat that in your head, so don't worry about it. Quick properties. So basically, not much else. Honestly, clean screen, I'm going to get rid of that, because if you hit clean screen, then it makes everything smaller, and then you have to click it on again to get this back. So we're going to turn that one, or make it go away, so that I don't worry about hitting it accidentally. Alright, so really the only one I wanted you to turn on for sure is dynamic input, and then I would turn on units. And then I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to click that little button. Well, and let's turn on coordinates for now, just because later on in another video I'll show you how that works. Alright, so we're hitting the 21-minute mark on this video, so I'm going to close it out. And let's just say this. We've got application button. You got your drawing area here. You've got tabs. So you've got your start tab that we started on, and see, I can just click back and forth between them. I haven't saved this drawing yet, which I should, and all I have to do is click on save, and the first time I go to save, it goes to save as, and then I would hit that, and notice it's a 2018 drawing. So everything that's 18, 19, and 20, they're all compatible, so you don't have to do anything special to save it back to a different one, which AutoCAD is one of the only ones you can do that. So like, I can open up a drawing from whenever, 2004, 2008, 2010, but if I want to go back to that file type, I would have to do change the file type here by clicking on this guy down here. So, but we'll get to some of that later. Alright, well, I'm just going to cancel, or no, I'll just hit save, right? Hit save, why not? So now it has done that, and it pops up this guy right here, and I'm not worried about it. So this is our ribbon. Don't forget that you need to do the pull down here. Make this say, click on show menu, so that you have your pull downs, right? Pull downs. This is your command line, and this is our status bar. And that's all we're going to do on this video. I'm going to try to break it up into a bunch of different ones. Chapter 2 and figuring out how to use AutoCAD, it takes a little while, but if we break it up, and then you can sit and look at it again, and figure some things out. Alright, well, we'll see you on another video. Have fun.